People who bought a house. What is the weirdest thing you have found left by the previous owner? Before we start with the first story, please hit a subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Number 10. My first house purchase in 2005 bought an old farmhouse that was built in 1923. The basement was filled with crap. We told them they needed to clean it all out before closing, but they didn't do it. The realtor asked if we wanted to postpone closing, and we decided no. Some of the stuff looked interesting enough. Maybe it will be worthwhile to go through. Most of it was just junk. Then about halfway through, we were working our way from one end of the basement to the other because you could barely walk through. I went to pick up what I thought was a small box, only to quickly realize it weighed at least 75 pounds. Upon further inspection, it wasn't a box but a wooden square 4 inches wide and about 12 x 12 inches, with 2 thin masonite plywood covers on each side. On one edge were 2 bolts with wires coming off that had been cut. Very strange, had no idea what it was but thought it was interesting. So I put it aside and we kept going. At the very back of the basement, once we cleared everything else out, was a rickety gray cabinet built into the house. Inside were numerous strange small tools, vials of mercury, vials of a strange powder, and thousands, literally thousands of dice blanks. Some actual dice, but mostly blanks without the dots. They were all in little boxes labeled dice blanks. Also very strange, not too long after that, I met a guy and upon learning my address, he said, "Can I come over? My best friend grew up in that house." He came by and proceeded to tell me stories for an hour and a half about his childhood best friend's eccentric father. Someone who was a part of the Dixieland Mafia in the 60s and 70s and who made a living traveling around the U.S. as a traveling gambler. The enormously heavy box was an electromagnet, and the dice blanks were for him to make his own loaded dice with a little bit of metal powder under the inlaid dot, so he could set up his own table with the electromagnet underneath, and turn it on when he wanted to persuade the dice. He told me many other stories, including that there was no doubt in his mind that he had killed someone. Pretty fascinating. Number 9. A glass bowl. It was kind of pretty, with horizontal blue stripes. We kept fruit in it. We thought about dropping it off at the local charity shop but never got around to it. Then one day I was at an antique fair and I saw for sale glass bowls that looked almost identical to ours. I went home and did my bowl and brought it to be assessed. Turns out it was a vintage Auriferous crystal bowl. The assessor valued it at around $800. We no longer keep fruit in it. Number 8. My ex-wife found, behind a drawer in a built-in cupboard, a lovely lockbox containing several nice pocket watches and family heirlooms. The great part was that, with a little sleuthing, we found the son of the man who originally built that house and reunited these items to the family. It was a wonderful experience from start to finish. Number 7 wasn't a purchase, but I was showing a house to a couple and we couldn't believe the reported square footage. It looked like a nice 1,700 square foot house in a semi-rural community, but the square footage on the listing said about 4,500. I was sure it was a typo. Turns out most of it was basement. Think Buffalo Bill's basement that just goes on and on with random rooms. The place was vacant, the lighting wasn't great, and we got to a dead-end room down there and turned on the lights, and there is this porcelain doll just chilling in the middle of the room. The only thing left in the house. Husband yells, "F this," and we all run out. We ruled out that whole neighborhood as an option for reasons. Number 6. Not really weird, but they left a typed out and printed note about the house and how to take care of it, detailing all the plant life in the backyard and how to prep for the winter. Described how to take care of the hot tub and gave random tidbits about the electrical. They were good people, lol. I got something similar from the previous owners of my house. 16 pages of notes about the house, the renovations, the models, and information on things like the generator and sprinklers, contact info for contractors they used, etc. It was incredibly generous. But in 2 years I found too many hobbyist renovations to continue thinking of them fondly. Apparently the husband liked doing all his own work and he didn't know about construction or plumbing or electrical because he was a retired dentist. I've been slowly hiring people to fix his stupid mistakes, like venting the stove exhaust into the wall, swapping polarity and electrical outlets, and installing a ridiculous amount of HVAC ducts. Number 5. Lived here 3 years, slowly renovating it since it seemingly hadn't been touched since the 80s. Got a new kitten this year, and she was trouble. Always getting places she shouldn't. She got in a closet under the stairs and behind a piece of drywall. Couldn't coax her out, so I just pulled the drywall down and found her standing on a few old boxes. Pulled them out, and it ended up being around $10,000 of silver and old coins that it seems were put there in the 90s and forgotten about. Number 4. My wife and I bought a house shortly after we were married in the early 80s. Cleaning before we moved in, we found a World War II inflatable life raft with a water desalination drinking kit. Rolls of green grade grass, the stuff they put around open graves and cemeteries so your feet don't get muddy. Bins of beads to make rosaries. Amateur paintings of Jesus that were nailed to the wall in the attic, nailed not hung. A Nazi knife, a grenade casually forgotten behind tools on a shelf in the back shed, an old broken cedar oak chest filled with the cut-off bottoms of hundreds of denim jean legs, a child's potty chair filled with old poop, hidden under a built-in bench in the dining room. These are only the things that came to mind first. As you can imagine, we got a pretty good deal on the house. It was worth the small cost of renting the dumpster, calling the police bomb squad, and the hassle of selling some of the artifacts. Oh, when we pulled up the carpet in the living room a few years later, we discovered the floor beneath it was custom linoleum tile inlaid with geometric shapes depicting soccer players and soccer balls. Number 3. Not my house, but the school my friend worked at. A pipe had leaked and ruined a wall in the building, one of the oldest schools in the city. It was a beautiful property. Anyways, the pipe leaked, so they pulled down the ruined wall and behind the wall found a door. A fully furnished apartment was there. Had a coal-burning stove to heat it. Early 1900s appliances and decor. It was for the caretaker of the school. Reply. My ex-wife's family knocked down a wall in a 400-year-old house in Cornwall and found a perfectly intact bedroom from the 1800s, still with all the personal effects where they had been left. Nobody knows why it was boarded up or why things weren't taken out of it. Oh, and that house always appears in the guides for the most haunted locations in Cornwall, if you believe that kind of stuff. Number 2. Before I met her, my wife got a call from someone she worked with saying they'd just bought an old house and in the city, and in it was a steamer trunk with her family name, not a common one, carved into the woodwork on one end. As it turns out, it was the trunk that her great-grandfather used when he came over from Germany, and had made the trip to my wife's hometown when he met her great-grandmother on a visit, and subsequently moved to her city to marry her. We now have it, and it's full of family portraits and albums. Number 1. It's not really weird, but I think it's kind of a nice story. One of the kids' rooms has a shelf going all around the top edge, and when my kid was putting stuff up there, they found a letter from the previous kid. The letter welcomed them to the room, etc., and asked them to take special care of a rose bush in the front yard that was their special rose bush. My kid thought it was really cool to have that connection with the previous kid. Alright folks, that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us on today's stories. If you like more of this, please hit a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you in the next video.